Shabazz, break it down with the proper perspective. So much controversy and a lot of deception. You don't know who's coming through with the light and reflection, and whose mouth is mumbling, trick knowledge deceptive. Shabazz, break it down with the proper perspective.
What's going on, everybody? How y'all doing? This your brother Shabazz. Hopefully you can hear me. I'm getting a little message saying the mic is muted, but I'm seeing all my green arrows, so shouldn't mute it. So if you can't hear me, let me know. I might have to do a little double check on the phone. Let me see what's going on with these settings and whatnot. And while I am waiting, I might as well play some background music so instead of having dead silence. And we're going to see what's going on in a hot second. As long as you can hear me, we good to go. And let's see. Let me see if it's playing on the phone. Yes, it is. Let's see. Okay. So we are live, ladies and gentlemen. The mic is hot. The takes, we coming in hot. No, we ain't really coming in hot tonight. I'm too tired to be coming in hot. We are gonna have a conversation. I hope that I am joined, but I ain't gonna say no names because if they don't come, then I feel like I'm embarrassed of myself. But we're gonna have a conversation about Black History Month in particular. And what I mean is sort of like a meta conversation. I'm not gonna, well, the primary goal is not to be discussing specific accomplishments and achievements and whatnot of specific people. We may do some of that, but right now the primary goal, stemming from a conversation that I was graciously allowed to take part of last night, and so I wanted to extend it, and at least one person, if not two people that was in that conversation last night, may be joining us tonight. Now I have the link in the chat, so if you're watching, and if you wanna jump on, and be in the video, you want to be on screen, the link is posted at the top of the screen, so that you can hit that, and then that I will get the notice that you're backstage, and then I'll pull you in. Otherwise, if you're just watching, that's cool. Thank you very much for showing up. If you're going to be conversing amongst the folk in the chat room, that's cool too. Keep it calm, keep it respectful. These topics, these issues can bring out the heat. Peace, cuz. Peace. Dr. Dennis Assault Winkler is in the building. Peace, cuz. Like I said, if you do want to join, the link is in the chat. And if you can't find it, let me know and I'll drop it again. But what I'm gonna do something slightly a little different tonight. I don't usually speak off the cuff. I usually go deep and set up my whole I create a lesson plan like I was still back in the classroom and script out my notes. I did a little bit of that. I've been tired. I've been battling some stuff, so I ain't getting anything all synced up. But I got some stuff to say. And so that's what we're going to be dealing with a little bit tonight. Now, like I said, there's a question, and I swear I'm we Black folk, we love to fight. We always have find something to fight about. So apparently there's some stuff going on about who should be studied during Black History Month. And so one of the things that came out of last night's conversation was that we need to look at Carter G. Woodson's actual intent, his original intent. And that's really what got me going. Now, I don't mind broadening the scope if that's what people, we got to give the people what they want, is what we say sometimes. And I don't necessarily have a problem with that. But we do definitely need to first look at what was the original intent before we go broadening the scope. And so when we look at the original intent, when we look at Carter G. Woodson and we look at Negro History, I think the words of the day, there are 2 or 3 words or phrases that we all need to get real comfortable with. One of those words is nuance. One of those words is centered. Centered versus decentered, and nuance. So, and I say that because I know for a fact, but I know that Carter G. Woodson included all kinds of information in his original publication. He was putting out circulars. And I know that he included information primarily about the Negro in the United States. But he also included information about the Negro in the Caribbean and the Negro on the continent. And I'm using Negro on purpose because that's the word he used. That's the word that was in use during his day. But he did not 100% draw down on just America. He included information about the Haitian Revolution, for instance. He included information about Jamaican slavery, for instance. So there's a documented scholarly view that Carter G. Woodson's historical vision extended beyond a narrow focus on Black America. But there's also a documented scholarly view that Carter G. Woodson's historical vision was centered on Black America. And that's the truth. And people shouldn't get in their feelings. If there are, Mr. Eric Torres for joining us, if there are people, some people may be Black American themselves and just feel like they want to learn about more than just us. Some people may be, of a quote unquote immigrant background, and they feel like their contributions need to be added. I'm not here to tell you that they shouldn't be added. I'm not here to tell you that they can't be added. Now, I am here to tell you that there may be ways in which they get added. And so Black History Month is specifically about the sojourn under the dominion of Uncle Sam. But it is not exclusively about the sojourn under the dominion of Uncle Sam from the perspective of the children, the descendants of the plantation era. And so it can get very tricky. It can get very dicey when we have these conversations. And there are people who will say, no, it's either this or that. It's left or right, it's right or wrong, it's black or white. Now these hardcore draw the line in the sand type people, I personally, I try not to have conversations with those people. Because if you're so rooted in a position where you absolutely refuse to consider, contemplate, and understand nuance, there's not a lot anybody can do or stay with. And so that's okay. So that's my opening, my first, position. Yeah, when we look at Woodson's scholarship, his scholarly reach, again, his central institutional focus was the history of African Americans. Nobody should be confused about it. His actual scholarly project also, however, engaged broader diasporic themes. Let me give you like an analogy, and maybe not an analogy. Let me give you an example. Now, I don't know what kind of newspapers you read. I tend to read The Final Call, or I take opportunities to read The Final Call. One of the reasons I've always been impressed with The Final Call is they give the reader a specific snapshot of what's going on in Black America. But they have specific pages, columns, sections that lets you know what's going on in the Caribbean, what lets you know some of the things going on the continent. But they are clearly an African American focused publication. And so again, that's what I'm getting at. Now, my cousin said it's not either or, it's both and I like that. Ifa spirituality tells you it's too much either or going on in whatever religion that you practice. In reality, it's both and. But that's the nuance that people have to begin to cozy up to. And so Woodson, so what I'll say is Woodson was one of the first historians to publish a professional journal. And it was indeed. It was called the Journal of Negro History. This journal regularly included articles on the Atlantic and the Caribbean slave trade and related topics beyond just the U.S. context. Now, you might say, well, what does that got to do with Black History Month? Well, we're talking about the father of Black History Month, and we're talking about what he was intending to do. And so, at almost every opportunity, when he put pen to paper, and when he published something that was circumspect, that was fully spectrum. Now, that doesn't mean it was 50-50. It was still 80 to 90% African American, Black American, U.S. situation. But he knew that Black people had to be aware of some of the things going on outside the borders, because A, just to be mindful, but B, because some of the things that go on beyond the borders that are impacting our brothers and sisters across the planet are also directly impacting us. So he did have a slant towards beyond the U.S. And when you look at the books that he wrote, when you look at the journals that he established, he didn't write just one book. I know a lot of us are saying, Miseducation of the Negro, Miseducation of the Negro. That's the. He wrote other books. Now, Miseducation of the Negro is, by all means, it's the standard. It's his opus, you might say. But even in that text, there are statements, there are phrases, there are sections where he is demonstrating the intent. And that intent was to make sure that we as African Americans are knowledgeable of ourselves and our history and our culture and our background and our contributions and achievements, but we are also aware of the world around us outside of the border. And that shouldn't be taken away. And I know there are some people, because there were people in the chat room last night, and they were trying to argue. Again, you're always going to have people trying to argue, but you don't have to give in to the argument. So there are people saying, no, Arthur Schomburg is the father of Black history. No. I mean, you can be wrong. You have a right to be wrong. And so what I said was, look, a lot of times we get into our feelings over this stuff. But the idea is, everybody wants a title. It's just like in hip hop. Well, who's the rap god? Well, there's a bunch of rap gods. Oh, there can only be one. Well, how come you got 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 different rappers calling themselves rap god? There ain't been no contest for all the rap gods to go at each other to declare one rap god once and for all. You can have more than one title. You can have more than one person holding a title. What? That's hip hop. Now we talk about Black History, Black History Month, Negro History Week. We're talking about the person that started it. Well, beyond a shadow of a doubt, he who starts it gets the throne. That doesn't mean that other people haven't come along and deserve some kind of title and recognition. I respect Arthur Schomburg for what he did. Arthur Schomburg was an archivist. You could call him a master archivist. But that doesn't mean Woodson is not the father. Woodson would still be the father. Now, if you're getting your feelings over you're not taking my side. I don't know what to say to you. I don't know what to say to you. Because it's not about taking sides. It's about understanding nuance. Now, again, when you go back and look at the breadth of work that Carter G. Woodson put down, he wrote textbooks. He wrote a series of textbooks for like elementary school, middle school, and high school. In each of those books, and this goes to his original intent, he wrote The Negro in Our History. He began it with the history of Africa. He didn't start in the U.S. So there's the implication right there, that for him, the story of a people who are of African descent wouldn't necessarily include information that connects them back to Africa. So Black History Month, in honor of his intent, should include some information about Africa. Now that don't mean you reverse it and now 95% of what you're learning is about Africa and you're learning nothing about what you're doing over here. Anybody making that argument is preposterous. Now anybody who is afraid of that's what's going to happen, okay, anything can happen if you are under the impression that you don't have to stay on top of your business. It's like voting. People like to vote and then go on back to their regular world and they'll never think about their civic responsibility. And then shocked, then angry when they find out that the representative didn't vote on bill number 45 that they thought they were going to vote. But you have to stay in the driver's seat. So the idea I'm trying to express is you should not have to worry about erasure if you are in charge of the program. But you should not be mindful towards exclusion when exclusion is not the name of the game. It's not the way the world works, and it's not what Carter G. Woodson intended. Now, I dare use the term, the ugly, nasty P word that everybody seems to lose their minds off of. But you can make the argument that Carter G. Woodson had a Pan-African lens. I ain't say he was a Pan-Africanist, but he had a Pan-African lens. He had a view towards internationalism, having an international orientation. Because historically speaking, he engaged with the broader diasporic subjects and connections to other Black intellectuals. He wrote for Marcus Garvey's Negro World. Now, these documented actions and choices in his scholarship provide evidence that his frame of reference wasn't limited to the U.S. But again, balance. Y'all know what ma'at is in ancient Egyptian and in Kemetic teaching. Ma'at, balance, harmony. So as much as he had an international frame, he still had an institutional mission that was foregrounded right here on the soil of Uncle Sam's dominion. It should not be that difficult for us to hold space for both without losing ground at all. Peace Controller 828, what's good? What's good, Punk? Shout out again to Eric Torres. I forgot, I need to remember put the names on the screen. So please, the Dr. Dennis Oscar Awakener. And Eric Torres and Troller 828 was good. I'm hanging in there. How you doing? So I got this comment somewhere up in here. At least I thought I did. Maybe I don't. So if I don't, then I'm gonna go ahead with this little presentation. So now again, then you can have an argument about interpretation of fact and explicit advocacy. I'm not necessarily saying, let me say it this way. Now, Woodson explicitly wrote about the need for a non-biased, inclusive global history in his statements about Negro History Week. So that's a clear documented imperative. Now, what that means, again, he included information about the Haitian Revolution. He included information about Jamaican slavery, Caribbean history into his publication because they had a meaningful impact. They held significant weight, at least on the minds, if not also on the politics of Black America. So, again, there's documented evidence that Woodson spoke and wrote about the need for history to be inclusive and free from bias, which logically encompasses global histories of Black people. That doesn't mean that he was trying to, he wanted to, or anybody should do anything to erase or decenter or uproot the Black American during Black History Month. I just want to try to make that clear. And so one of the things I was going to do, I wanted to talk about, so how, like, for instance, how do schools handle and manage this? Now, I can't speak definitively about the here and now in 2026. I retired from school. I retired from teaching. So this is like my third year out. So, anything could have changed in those 3 years. But when I was, what I'm trying to say is when I was teaching, and obviously Black History Month came up. And so the question would be, well, do we include non-Americans in Black History Month? And so here's the thing. Are we teaching Black Americans as an isolated minority group or as part of a global African diaspora shaped by Atlantic modernity, shaped by international world affairs? Now, I say that Woodson clearly leaned toward this. Not this non-Americans out business. Non-Americans front and center, and whatever is going on in the diaspora that has an impact on us needs to be considered, taught, understood. So, let me see what else is going on. Let me turn this music down because I'm not too sure. Somebody told me once before that the music was too loud, so okay. The music is almost null and void now. So, like I said, if you look at some of his actual works, and I'm gonna see if I can share the screen. Now, I know everybody loves Miseducation of the Negro, but I want to share this. Let me see. Let me just make this statement. If your history starts at 1619, you're using the slave master's clock. So just think about that for a minute. Now let me see if I can pull up this. I think this is it. No, that don't look like it. That might be it. So let's see if this is gonna work. So we got the Negro Retold. This is a book that he wrote. And I'm only showing this for at least for one specific purpose. Again, the Negro Retold. This is a book that he wrote. And it speaks to his original intent. So I want to show you, this is literally like they have digitized this book. And so you can see what it looks like if it was literally in your hands from the original publication. The Story of the Negro Retold. And he has a picture. I submit to you that this is a picture of an African in Africa. But, you know, we can go toe to toe or whatever. But it is called Africa Awakens, the story of the Negro retold. And the first image in the book is a picture of an African saying Africa Awakens. Why am I saying this? Because the word Negro is being attached to Africa. And I say that, maybe I need to come back to the big screen. That didn't work. I say that specifically because too often we get caught up in this thing where whether we're using the word Negro back then, we're using the word black today, we get caught up in this thing where we say, well, black, that's just us. Peace. Thank you, cuz. Talk that talk. Thank you for that. If you want to jump in, just let me know. But we get too caught up in feeling like the word black is ours. And I'm like, okay, to some extent, I get it. It's ours in the context of it's either us or it's the white folk. But black don't belong to us across the whole world and globe. And I say that very specifically. I mean this. And I mean it because we have, now I'm connecting myself back to that continent. And on that continent, we called ourselves black. All the way back to Kemet. The word Kemet itself meant black. It's used as a descriptor. It's used as an adjective. And that mess that they want, it's talking about the soil. It ain't talking about the soil. It was talking about the people. But even if it was talking about the soil, it's talking about what color of the soil? Black soil. And you go do the research and you find out that they even used it to describe the humans of the civilization. That's why I say it's not just about the soil. But more importantly, that's what's up. I got you. More importantly, we've been calling ourselves black since Kemet. We called ourselves black in Ethiopia. Ethiopia means black-faced, burnt-faced. We called ourselves black in the Sudan. Now, you may play with, well, who created the word? Well, who accepted the word? We created the word in Kemet. Ethiopia was given by the Greeks. Sudan was given by the Arabs. And now you're going to get into another whole thing as to whether or not the Arabs were black or white or pale or tan or whatnot. But that's for another day. My point is, we've always called ourselves black in some time or another during certain historical periods. So we don't have an exclusive ownership of the word black. We don't have an exclusive ownership of the word Negro. We didn't have it during Carter G. Woodson's time. So when Carter G. Woodson says Negro, he doesn't have to automatically only mean the American Negro. He would say the American Negro if that's what he meant. Other times he says Negro, other times he says African. But again, what I wanted to show you in his work, and this speaks to, okay, again, the idea is original intent. Original intent. So what did he intend? Well, when he put his books together, he liked to start off with chapter 1. Chapter 1 was about Africans transplanted. He didn't start off with 1619. He didn't start off, well, when we got off the boats, we became a new people. And yeah, that's a shot. So he started off with the origins of the Negro. And so I wanted to show this as published intent. And he says, the story of the Negro retold, chapter 1, Africans transplanted, the Negro in Africa. So again, if you say, well, Negro and black, that's our word. Well, not according to Carter G. Woodson, because he's saying that the Negro is in Africa. And he calls this section Africans transplanted, and he starts off captives in war. The large majority of Negroes first brought to America had been taken as prisoners of war and then disposed of to slave traders along the west coast of Africa. This importation of Africans into the Western Hemisphere resulted from the commercial expansion, which was then revolutionizing the world. America had been accidentally discovered by Columbus in 1492 when he was trying to find a new trade route. But again, the idea is he is putting our origins in Africa. That's what Carter G. Woodson's intent was. Study yourself. Study yourself here in America, but don't forget to study your origins because you came from Africa. And so, again, my point is, if we're looking at original intent, there's no way that the original intent is not locked, stock, and barrel with a global view. But that global view does not mean that we go to the back of the bus. We done with back of the bus shit. We ain't doing that ever again. But that don't mean we got to close the door out of fear. So the early chapters of the Negro in Our History, that's another book. He starts off with ancient African civilizations. This is for the Negro to be studying. He starts off with Ethiopia. He starts off with Egypt. He starts off with West African empires. He starts off with pre-Atlantic African social systems. He doesn't begin at 1619 or 1492 or 1555. So that means in his overall scheme, Unit 1 of teaching, of learning, of studying in Black History Month is Africa first. That's not a modern insertion. That's not a Pan-African. That's not, oh, you Pan-Africans just trying to make everything about Africa. Clearly said, Carter G. Woodson ain't a Pan-Africanist. But he said, when it's time to study, you start with where you came from. And this is important. So let me say it to you this way. His treatment of Africa in study mode is introductory. Here's one you're really gonna love. His treatment of Africa in study mode is foundational. That's not Afrocentricity. He is establishing civilizational legitimacy. And he don't spend half the book there. He don't spend a third of the book there. He does treat the Atlantic world. He covers the slave trade, the Caribbean plantation system. And again, if he's covering it for a reason. He wants you to study it. So, okay, we can say, well, you know something? I'm so tired of all of this Africa stuff. I'm so tired of all this Caribbean stuff. I just don't want to learn about it. Okay. You got that right. And you can work towards making the changes that you think need to be made in the curriculum or in your own everyday life, however you personally celebrate Black history. Ain't nobody saying you gotta go pull up to a Caribbean thing. Ain't nobody saying you gotta go pull up to an African thing. I'm talking curriculum. I'm talking about what goes on inside classrooms. And so even there, if you want to make changes, well, you know what? You got to go politic. That means you got to have some civic responsibility. And I don't think most of the people that like to fight online got any plans on going down to the school board and demanding this, that, or the other be put into the curriculum or taken out. I think y'all just like to fight online. But if we're talking again about Carter G. Woodson's original intent and what his publications were designed to do. Now you can't say, well, just because he published that book don't mean that was his intent. Now you smoking something. He created the Negro Learning Week. He created a textbook about Negro learning. And in those textbooks, he starts with Africa. In those textbooks, he includes the slave trade of America. He includes the slave trade of the Caribbean. He includes Haiti and the Haitian Revolution. He includes things that happened with the Afro-Latinos in Latin America. He includes the dispersion of Africans throughout the Americas. But none of this is done to put the African American on the back burner. He treats slavery as a hemispheric system, not a US phenomenon. But again, proportion matters. The majority of the narrative space shifts toward the United States once Africans enter British North America. So the core of that book, The Negro in Our History, focuses on colonial America, as it should. It focuses on the American Revolution, slavery in the US, Reconstruction, Black institutions, political leadership. This is all in the US. Intellectual figures, this is all in the US. And early 20th century developments. So structurally, this is all in the US. There is a smidgen of Africa in there. There is a smidgen of the Atlantic. And when I say Atlantic, I'm talking about the Caribbean. That's how he built his textbooks. Now, his textbook specifically, why did he do a textbook? Why is it important to consider the textbook? Well, what else you gonna learn in the school during Negro Learning Week? So, let me say it this way. So, does his textbook align with, I don't know where all these phone calls is coming from. His textbooks align with what a curriculum would look like, what Black History Month should look like all across America. His textbooks were designed to give you a blueprint. Okay, add to the stage. Let me make sure I'm doing this right. I'm gonna figure this out in a minute. Okay, stop sharing. Okay, I'm gonna get this working in a minute, cause let me see. Add to the stage. I don't know where. Okay, now we getting there a little bit. Let's see.
Then you go back to your PowerPoint presentation. You were doing such a great job. You could put me back in the back. I don't want to stop your flow.
I mean, it's up to you. I want you here. So
Okay, well, I think you just have to hit the it gives you options for presentations. Yeah.
Okay, there we go.
Another one.
And let me see. And see if I can pull that screen back up again. Okay, so there we go. I just can't get it no bigger.
There might be an option for us to be smaller.
New layout, manage layout. No, not manage. If I maximize it, then we go away. Yeah, that might be the best I can get. Let me see.
I can actually read it. I can read it actually.
Okay, that's a little bit better.
I wonder if you just did something.
Okay, well, I'm gonna run with it. Let me see. I was probably finished with this one anyhow, so I'll just take this one off and then just go back to, there we go. That's really what I wanted. Okay, so now, right. So the question I'm trying to get at here, what would have been the purpose of him designing a textbook? Like, clearly he designed a textbook because that's what he wants us to study. That's the structure he wants us to use. Obviously, we would have to update the information as time goes on. But in most of the books that he wrote, chapter 1 was about Africa. Chapter 2 was about the Caribbean. Chapter 3 was about us. Chapter 4 was about how we interacted with other groups, and so on and so forth. So, if you're doing, if you're saying his original intent, then you would look at his books and you would look at the layout, the lesson plan, so to speak, of what he laid out. So African civilizations in pre-Atlantic context, the Atlantic world and slavery across all of the Americas. Then Black Americans in the US, and then that's where you go knee deep. That's when you go deep dive, go down the rabbit hole in any way that you want to. And so that's part of the, the thing I'm trying to like just put out there or present or whatever. I had some stuff pulled up and I'm gonna see if I can find it again. But the other thing I was trying to position is the fact that, okay, again, dealing with classrooms. And so when I was teaching, we had to make sure that we were going across, like we had to sit up in committees and make sure that all the teachers in all the different disciplines, subjects and topics were covering certain concepts and ideas, especially during Black History Month. So the math teacher's like, look, I teach algebra. I don't know what y'all talking about. I ain't got time for that. My students is failing. They don't understand. Well, look, bro, like between the English teacher and the history teacher, we had to sit up and create some quick lesson plans. Look, you're going to have to cover this in your algebra class. And so we would put some stuff together and it would be like, okay, since it's algebra or since it's math, you can spend some time talking to them about, great achievements from African Americans in the field of mathematics that might actually get them more excited to learn and to focus and pay attention to your boring, quadratic equations. Now, don't know if it actually did that, but the idea is you have to put that information there. And so we had to do that all across. And so, the math teachers were told, okay, here's some things to include. Yeah, ancient Egypt, because they had pyramids and they had, the equations, not the, I don't like calling I don't like calling it Pythagoras, but the triangle equations and whatnot. So that had to go into the math class. And then you went down the hall and you went to if you went to the history class or the social studies class or the civics class, you had to make sure that they were going to include, you know, some information on whether it be black protests or Martin Luther King's the bus boycott and et cetera, et cetera. Now, in any of those instances, if there was somebody that was significant to the historical event and they just happen to not be Black American, you ain't pull them out. Oops, can't talk about him. No, they get included. So if it was whether, so for instance, in the English class, because I taught the English class. So I'm like, okay, so I would have to deal with the Harlem Renaissance. And I would almost purposely choose to deal with the Harlem Renaissance in February. And so I'm like, oh, well, now's my chance. I can get everybody to read Claude McKay's If We Must Die, because he's Harlem Renaissance. It's Black History Month. Oh, shucks, he was born in Jamaica. Damn, I can't put him in there? No. He goes in because he was significant to the movement itself. It's not like he was an unknown poet. Now you might make the argument if you just dragging up a poet just cause he was born in Jamaica and ain't nobody know about him and it didn't have no impact. Okay, that's something else. But no, I'm talking about the people who were significant and influential. And when he wrote that poem, everybody was like, you know that brother right, we need to take a stand. You know, the other writers was like, whoo, bro, what you did with that. So just because he was Jamaican born don't mean he ain't supposed to be talked about during Black History Month.
Who was that? Anybody?
Claude McKay.
Oh, okay.
Claude McKay.
Okay.
And so I'm like, that's one example of, okay, yeah, I would cover Langston Hughes, but I would not skip Claude McKay just because he's Jamaican born. I
don't know if I can dialogue with you or not. I
Why?
Are you? Is it okay to dialogue?
Yeah, go.
Oh, okay. Yeah, because I don't want to jump your lesson because your lesson is beautiful, right?
Oh, thank you.
And what I'm thinking though is like, I appreciate what you're doing, and sometimes and what I be doing, right? But the reality is, I'm thinking as I'm walking back to the office, like, you're reasoning, and when you're and the thing is, what I realize is that we're speaking to people who are those with this argument. Many of them, if not most of them, are not ready for reasoning.
That's powerful. And I mean, you are so right. And it's like, honestly, for me, for a very long time, even in the field, even teaching and working with the students, I always felt this thing. I always recognized, I'm like, I always was able to recognize when the student is so bogged down into an emotional thing. And I was like, I'm not gonna get through. Now I would now because of, you know, just the particulars of the school I was at, I'm like, okay, I know I gotta send you somewhere.
No, I'm not saying because
I can't. I'm not gonna do. I can't. It's just not like I can talk to you when you open for reasoning. When you not open for reasoning, like I don't know. That was not my teacher gift. That was not my personality disposition. I'm like, I can't fade nobody.
But I think you're doing an excellent job in reasoning, and I think that even when I was on Dr. Myatt's show, which I think I heard you earlier say somewhat prompted some discussion you had in the chat prompted this. Yeah. I was reasoning as well. Because even the logic around why Black History Month or Negro History Week was created, and the very notion that Carter G. Woodson is not even looking at this from a celebratory type of lens, but more of a healing and, let's say, political lens. In fact, it says with the hopes that Black History Month would not even be, there won't be a need for the very thing. This is a part of the reasoning that, but we're here fighting about, we're here fighting about who should be included. But I think there's a deeper level of of what's going on psychologically. There's a very defensiveness that's going on. I'm saying it, trying to defend something that is not under attack. I literally, like, it's to some degree. I'm not saying it's not one person or this person. That's not a. How many Caribbean people do you think are going around saying we want to take over Black History Month? How many African people do you think are saying, let's take over, we want to take over Black History Month, we're going to usurp it? We usurp Black Americans. Like, I'm not saying there's no one, that'll be kind of like illogical, but for real, like, we put our energy in places that are not needed many times. Like, in fact, I'm saying it's very intentional. Going back to my conversation the other day with Dr. Ball, this is psychological warfare, which has people like you having to come and show things in a very reasonable and logical fashion. The very fact, if you go Google his internationalist position, as you were speaking to, if you go and Google, I'm saying just Google, ChatGPT it, you know what I mean?
Right.
Do whatever you do and ask the appropriate questions, and then go and follow the source. Go and follow the source and see. You said something the other day when you called in, or before you called in, and I forgot what they call them. What they call them, what were they, brochures or something that kind of
the circulars.
The circulars. That also, and I want to just be clear. I don't know if you took the step forward to say that these circulars were used for, first of all, Negro History Week lesson plans in schools and churches and all these places, but they were inclusive of our international brothers and sisters.
Exactly.
So that in of itself is evidence that it was always looked at from an internationalist perspective, as you used earlier.
Right.
But I'm gonna stop there.
No, right, you're right. And I had said, I opened up and I was like, we sure know how to fight.
Yeah.
It's like when there is nothing going on, we figure out, man, it's gotta be somebody to fight. There's gotta be a way for us to have some beef.
We're not to fight each other.
So, yeah, exactly. That's what I mean. Like, we don't never want to turn our eyes toward the oppressor. But, and I had said that, the circulars, the first volumes of his publications, the textbooks, like everything that I don't want to say everything, almost everything that he put together from an inclusive perspective. Whether, because some people feel the way they feel about the word Pan-African, I ain't even, and I'm not making the argument that he created a Pan-African publication. I'm saying he simply included, just like, and I said earlier, the final call. You pick up the final call. Now, is you really going to be like, for the people that's into this little argument thing, you telling me you going to feel a way if you pull up to the brother on the corner and you give him his like $2 for the final call, and you start reading through the pages, they got a story in here about Jamaica. I want my money back. Is that because that's what you sound like?
And then they will probably deny that they're going to that level. But the reality is what they do well is double talk and move the goalpost. Because they begin to realize how ignorant they sound. But they do that to save face. But in all actuality, they don't change their inner thoughts or their ideas of what they're trying to protect. but they will do things to save face. And save face requires a sleight of hands and some lies and acting like you were saying something that you weren't saying.
Exactly.
But then so look, can I read this real quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
I put a post out today because I was looking around, and I even looked for the Africans. I looked for all the Africans saying all this thing, but most of the videos came up that was more the Africans that were saying, "Oh, we want to take we need to be involved in Black History Month." I'm not saying there's not none there, but we act like there's a plethora in it's more quote unquote these hashtag groups that are saying that they're trying, and actually jumping off of that, whatever that guy who got the award the other day, what's his name, Shabuzi or something?
Shabuzi.
I don't know who Shabuzi is. All I know is Shabuzi that was bait. That was content for them. And and honestly, I didn't look at Shabuzi. I don't know if he responded again, but what I can say is if one could literally look at what he said from several angles.
Right.
And a person who's triggered already and already afraid of and want to set these boundaries will instantly have a certain thought, or people who are already hurt will land a certain way. But then a person people are not hurt, they will say, so what did he mean by that? I think that from what I heard, the little clip I heard that's gone viral, it deserves further questioning. Now, I'm not sure if anybody's had that talk or that conversation, because most of us just get in our feelings. And the reality is that exactly what he said, it's not like that's the first time you heard that. In fact, if you want to be honest, and we had to be honest, they've also called us immigrants. It's those of us, I'm talking about those who descend from enslaved Africans in the United States. They have called us immigrants. Now, we fought back and said, hell no, we wasn't immigrants, some of us.
Right. Don't
erase the narrative of what actually happened. So you don't know what this person means by, I don't know, unless he has clarified it and extrapolated and extended the conversation.
Yeah, I know that I haven't read it, but I know I saw something come on my feed about him trying to explain what he meant and trying to explain that he didn't mean it in an offensive way, and that didn't go over too well. But they rarely go over well when if you already put your foot in your mouth and you're not either skilled in removing the foot,
I need to look,
or you have a team, you have a real good publicist that understands whatever community that you just disrespected. Then even when you come back for your second and your third and your fourth, it's just still more foot in the mouth.
Like, to me, it was clear where some people are trying to rewrite the narrative of Busta Rhymes saying we don't have culture. No, he didn't say African. No, you knew who he was talking about. So I'm just trying to show you, the context was very clear with Busta Rhymes. But let me read this. I put this out because this is what I felt as I'm listening and looking at these things. Y'all are out of your minds if you think I'm doing some FBA version of a purity test during my study of social change, especially during Black History Month. There is far too much hurt, pain, and unresolved trauma in our community, and it is spilling out sideways as fear, suspicion, and hostility towards one another, often over things that have very little probability of actually happening. Let me be clear. Let me say it again. Let me be clear. African Americans are not being erased. In fact, African Americans are the most visible and most celebrated Black people on the planet, for better, worse, and everything in between. And no, I'm not asking for blood samples or lineage proofs, manumission papers, rooted in one drop rule propaganda. I added the manumission papers. That framing itself is part of the problem. What I'm doing is studying social change. So, as you were saying, cuz, now I'm supposed to say, oh, I'm reading this book. A Jamaican popped up. Oh, stop. I'm just saying during Black History Month, we should not be lifting these people up. So what are we talking about a narrow linear? Are we trying to say contain the same stuff that's going on about within Black History Month now? This poor way that we're studying it, that is not even up to par with the very founder's vision. In fact, I would argue when you read his works and his ideas about Black History Month and or Negro History Week to be exact, and what he wanted it to accomplish, we're far from it, and we're doing the opposite.
Right.
And I said on Dr. Myatt's show the other day, the fact that he even argued that the fact that he would say that he hopes that this week, which evolved to a month, would do the work necessary to make it no longer necessary.
Right.
So what do you do with that? Do you now say we're still going to stay with, and it's also, let me back up. It's also in the literature, I'm saying documented that Dr. Woodson was against what he called narrow nationalism.
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is, look, I love my brothers and sisters, but I'm not going to play, and I'm going to turn it back over, because I'm not going to play and act like we're dealing with people who want to hear the truth. I'm not going to act like this is not a protective stance. I'm not going to act like this is not delusional. And let me just finish this up. What I'm doing is studying social change, identity formation, and community dynamics with honesty, not reenacting racial mythology or feeding fear-based narratives. So again, I agree with you, cuz Black people, wherever they are, including America, United States, to be more clear, it is essential that we learn about ourselves. But it is problematic when you have to go to so many levels to say, oh, no one else is included. That is poor study, and it is not in alignment with what Carter G. Woodson put out, and I think you articulated that well.
Thank you. Now I'm going to try to pull up. Well, let me read this. I may not pull it up because I don't want the screen to go crazy. But let me see. Let me read this. Where did it go? So in another work, same work, The Story of the Negro Retold, chapter 11, and it's entitled, The Negro Becomes an International Factor in the Caribbean. And he starts off a world power. He says, since the rise of the United States as a world power, especially as the result of the acquisition of foreign territory during the Spanish-American War, the Negro in the United States has ceased to be merely a national figure. The Negro could not have been localized in this country thereafter, even if he had desired so to be. Now again, this back there, 19 what?
What is that out of? But
this is out of The Story of the Negro Retold. It's his, and it's his book. It's not somebody else's book.
What's the date? Publication.
Let me see.
I'll look it up if you need me to while you do what you do.
Okay, yeah, because I don't have it.
I'll look it up
on my screen. But so again, back there, he is saying that we cannot be, like we can't be these heritage Americans. They want to close the borders and only think about here in the US. He was like, those days are gone. As soon as the country went global, we automatically went global. And he goes on to say why. He says, intervention in Cuba, the building of the Panama Canal, the seizure of Haiti, the purchase of the Virgin Islands, interference in Liberia, participation in the First and Second World Wars, and the stimulus to the sojourn of American Negroes abroad have brought the United States face to face with new aspects of the so-called race problem. In spite of the characteristic way of settling forever, the matter of subordinating Negroes in the United States, this element has been an ever-present difficulty in foreign affairs, both social and economic. And so again, his intent, these are his foundational texts. And he is clearly saying it's not just about America. But he clearly still says, he clearly still demonstrates that the focus is us first. But us first does not mean exclusion. And that's the only thing I'm trying to say. Because like, yeah, in last night's show with Dr. Mott, and it was really the people in the chat that were, and yeah, they were doing the bot thing, they were doing the FBA thing, and etc. But it's what they were doing, what is it? All or nothing, the zero-sum game. And it's like, no, if you start adding a Caribbean, then we're gonna lose it all. And it's just not, that ain't even how it works, first of all. Second of all, we've been adding Caribbeans since day one. We've been adding Kwame Ture. We've been adding Nkrumah, and so on and so forth. But they've never taken center stage. They're not riding at the front. They are off to the side. They're ride-alongs.
Yeah. Yeah, I've heard a lot of, to me, honestly, some inconsistency in these arguments, even last night, to be honest. Where at some points they'll say that these people aren't even to be celebrated. Or it's at least up for discussion. To me, it's not up for discussion. I mean, like, why? What you mean to tell me even Caribbean figures who come to America?
and that's really what I mean. Like,
or Africans who came to America, I have to now do the peerage test or even think about whether or not their contributions to as a Black person in America can and deserves or should be discussed.
Right. Yeah, it's like, even if I say, okay, I'll give you space and grace, I'm like, okay, I understand you are so hyper vigilant about protecting the Black American lesson plan. Okay. But you do know that the Black American, some of the stuff that we got because we interacted with the others, with the rest. And it doesn't make any, like, if you want to have this gate, then okay, I'm not saying study some political movement in Tanzania, when that political movement, while may have been important in Tanzania, had no impact over here. You would be right to say, well, why are we talking about this in Black History Month? But that's not what anybody is doing. The non-Black American elements that get talked about or discussed or studied, etc., in Black History Month.
I'm not gatekeeping none of it, because I had to go. I'm not gatekeeping. Like, I think all things are up for discussion, but I think you can. I'm not limiting anything. People can read some damn white history if they want to, and it's going to be connected to Black history during Black History Month. But what I'm saying is, Black History Month, it is essential to understand it is about us. And it is about our liberation. It is about these type of things. So sometimes you got to read other things, because it wasn't about, again, from Woodson's framework, is a mere celebration. It was about furthering us.
Right.
But it's also about, and I think that we should keep it centered about what we've done to relearn or re-educate or combat that miseducation.
Right. And I think that's a part that also gets forgotten or misconstrued, because the general public is more concerned with the celebration part of it. You know, and the conversations that they were having in the chat was more like, you know, it was like, you know, well, if we start bringing up these other, like, we don't got a parade, you know, and that's what they start talking about. We don't have a parade, but they do. That's not even what this is about.
But who doesn't have a parade? Like, okay.
I'm just saying, like, I've seen that.
I said that sounds like hurt.
It is, and that's when I'm like,
you tell me,
once that surfaces, I can't do, like I said, I've had the students, I've had the minors, young adults, I've had the old people, and, you know, in their primes and whatnot. Once that arises, I'm like, we got a counseling office down the street, down the hall. I can't. There's no interaction here. I can't do this.
They also said they got African History Week and African Heritage Month and Caribbean Heritage Month. I never heard of it. So the reality is I've never heard of it. So I mean, like, they probably even know about it. Like, it's like they got a month for everything in America. So like exactly. All you have to do, I think people just create them. Go ahead. No,
exactly, they do. And I'm like, now, and I had never heard of it, and I did Google it, and I'm like, oh, they do. They actually do. Okay. Now, to me, I'm like, oh, that's cool. But at the same time, them having an African Heritage Month, a Caribbean Heritage Month, that doesn't mean we can't include an African, a Caribbean in Black History Month if said African or Caribbean was really in lock, stock, and barrel working with us to advance the cause.
And they're going to say we're being petty, but I know it's not being petty, because I know this is what they mean and their minds think like this. So it's kind of like when the history is all said and done with my existence on this earth. I'm talking about me.
Okay.
Maybe I'll make some book somewhere, Baltimore or something, right? And then they just wipe my wife out of it because they had, she's Caribbean. Like,
right.
Well, then they have to think about, hold up, his children are half like. So this is the type of stuff we're talking about. Like, literally, we was processing that in real time yesterday. Like, whether Shirley or Chisholm or whether, and we're actually thinking about these things. I'm like, the fact that we even thinking about these things, that we're processing these things in real time, and as if they're real. I mean, I guess processing is not a problem to do it, because maybe we need to do it, and come to some conclusions. But the fact, I guess what I'm saying is that we have to do it is indicative of a serious issue going on in our minds and division within our community. And I must say, I think FBA, I'm sorry for saying, I don't know if you wanted me to bring them up or not, and the like. And I saw someone with ADOS on a video earlier on the Dr. Mayat station. I mean, but what I'm hearing is a whole bunch of talking points that are from people that are hurt and scared and thinking somebody's going to hijack their stuff. And the reality is, no, they're not. And they don't even have the power to do so. But you know who does have the power to kind of give it to them? Even if they did, it'll be the system that did it. So I'm just saying, we're not politically astute enough at times. We got to do better. We got to think a little stronger. We got to analyze a little deeper. But because I think my rites of passage initiatives are coming in, but you got something.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cool. If you got to go, that's cool. No, but I'm saying, like, you're right, because something I had said earlier was, you know, even if you're really honestly that so much concerned about protecting the curriculum, then once again, then you need to get offline and you need to go down to your school board to demand those changes. jumping on YouTube saying they trying to take it. Well, if they were actually trying to take it, you just gonna let them take it, because they gonna go to the school board. They gonna put in that work, and you just gonna cry online. But that, like, it begs the point. You not serious. You crying for attention, or you coming from a place of hurt. But that's also why I wanted to say, let's look at the classroom. And I'm like, like I said, when you look at the classroom is still 90% of the information that would be delivered to your child during Black History Month, if it's done right, if it's done the way it's supposed to, it's still going to be African American centered in all the classrooms. And me personally, I had more of a time back when I was there. I had more of a time trying to ensure that the white teachers was going to actually pick up the lesson curriculum that we put together. Because they'll just act like, oh, I forgot. Oh, we were supposed to do that this week. I ain't had no problems like that with the Black ones, even if the Black teacher wasn't Black American. So, that's my thing. That's because
I'm gonna get off, but I want to say, like, you just brought up something for me though, in my departing. Is that we're sitting here fighting about, we're gatekeeping who can be included, but we're not fighting as hard about accurate history. I'm saying as a whole. Like I was telling Dr. Mike yesterday, she's doing that aspect, right? She's fighting for accurate history. She's fighting for our children learning these things. But the majority of the people who have these fights, they are inaccurate in their ethnogenesis.
Yeah, I think
they are inaccurate in the material that they push. They are very highly connected to their Americanness per se. They are not. They are they have more of an integrationist frame, assimilationist frame, and this is not. This is what Dr. Carter G. Woodson. If you want, they don't even need to talk about Black History Month or Black or Negro History Week, because their talking points, their ideology, and their mindsets are anti what Woodson stood for. It is complicit with the miseducation. Look, enough said. Like, I'm just saying, like, I'm not playing with them because I understand that they playing with you and they don't have the maturity. Pardon me, the maturity to, like, it's like you are like, I've done it in my life. You really try to give people the benefit of the, I'm not talking about you, but I'm talking about me. You try to give people the benefit of the doubt. Like, this man looked like a man, but at some point where you have to realize you're dealing with a person that looks like a man, but inside there's a hurt child.
Right. That
we need to teach. As Dr. Clark said, what's his famous quote?
I don't debate. Wait, I forget how he's. I don't debate
my equals.
I only debate my equals. Everyone else I teach.
And I'm saying that when we are the adults in the room, when we are the emotionally balanced people, the logically sound, we need. And I know we have empathy, but we have to also understand that our people are, everyone ain't on the same level, and some of us need to heal and grow up. Y'all see my people in the back. Let me see.
Yeah, I still.
Hey, what up?
Peace.
I'm gonna get off here. Okay. I appreciate you, cuz, for doing the work. Hopefully, I didn't interrupt you too much on this great masterpiece you're putting together.
All. Not at all.
All right. Now I got just keep going. Peace.
All right, peace. Thank you. So, let me give a shout out to Perry Charles. Thank you for the respect. Brilliant video. Everyone needs to share this. Please like, share, and subscribe. Share this video with somebody you know needs this information. And yes, this is a very good point. Perry Charles says, Dr. Woodson was a member of the Negro History Club, which involved J.A. Rogers from Jamaica and several other major historians. This is it. This is true, and this is important because again, the idea is, actually they call it nativism, and it's the idea. It's this gatekeeping that people want to do. And even if I say you have a right to gatekeep if you want to, but you don't have a right to alter facts. And so the fact of the matter is, if you say that you want to respect and honor Carter G. Woodson, then you have to recognize that Carter G. Woodson did not gatekeep. Carter G. Woodson did not say, I'm only going to teach about Black America. Now, he didn't say, I'm going to teach about other global Black communities to the detriment of Black America. And again, I don't know, like, I'll have to lean into what my cousin said. If you cannot see the difference, then there's some hurt going on that's clouding your mind and your judgment. I can't help that. I can give you some rationality. I can give you some facts for you to mull over, and hopefully the facts will eventually begin to demystify your mind, unclog your mind. Because I always say, what I'm about on this channel is seeing the big picture, looking beyond the smoke and mirrors. A lot of people are stuck in these smoke and mirrors. Elijah Muhammad called it the triple stages of darkness. And that's what I see a lot of. But so again, if I'm to have this conversation, I'm imagining, okay, so we're going to come together as a committee, and we're going to gatekeep. We're going to investigate gatekeeping, because we want to make sure that the children only learn what they need to learn. And so I'm like, okay, so when you step inside, so when you step inside the math class, now this is the type of information that should be provided all year round, but clearly we ain't got there yet. We ain't got there because nobody wants to march in mass down to their school boards and say, here's what we want all year round. But that's another conversation. Right now we got control. We got a window of control with February. So in a math class, students should learn about Benjamin Banneker, Katherine Johnson, David Blackwell, Edward Cox, Euphemia Lofton Haynes. She was the first Black woman to get a PhD in math. All of these people are African Americans. But that doesn't mean you don't talk about Kemet. Because Kemet is a foundation of mathematics for the world. Geometry in ancient Egyptian land measurements, post-Nile flooding boundary recalculations, the Rhine mathematical papyrus, all of this is Black people's mathematical genius. And if you don't get a chance to learn it all year round, you should at least be introduced to it during February, during Black History Month, during Negro Learning Week. And that is the argument that Carter G. Woodson made. He didn't have to say, I'm a Pan-Africanist. He just said, our children need to know we come from Africa. Our children need to know that we come from Black civilizations that were masters at mathematics. And so that's what I'm saying. You can be, no matter how much you scream, don't add them. You're screaming into the wind. You're not making any sense. And you are contradicting that ancestor's original intent. And so if you jump into a science class, in that science class, there should be conversation, discussion, lesson plans, teaching about George Washington Carver, Charles Drew, Marie Maynard Daly in biochemistry, Percy Julian in synthetic chemistry, Neil deGrasse Tyson, who is living amongst us right now, astrophysics communication. But you know what you also include? the fact that West African iron smelting was a science that was years ahead of the rest of the world. Europe had nothing on that. You include Caribbean medical pioneers who literally influenced the US medical system. That's foundation, that's connection. That's not replacement. But that is what Black History Month is supposed to be. It is supposed to be an all-encompassing, all-inclusive, laser-like focus on African American accomplishments and our connection to the global Black world. If you stepped inside a fine arts classroom, art, music, theater, you would be learning about Harlem Renaissance, visual arts of Aaron Douglas, jazz, Duke Ellington, blues. You would even be learning about hip hop as a cultural production, August Wilson in the theater. Those are all African American accomplishments and achievements, but they did not manifest in a vacuum. So you're telling me you're just gonna get up and walk out the classroom if part of lesson plan talks about reggae and some of its influence on hip hop? You're gonna deny the fact that the Bronx, Boogie Down Bronx, KRS-One, The Teacher had a connection there, and he used some of that in his music? Or you just gonna write him off where he don't get to be discussed in February? So what I'm saying is diasporic cross-pollination is natural, is historically traceable, and is Black History Month relevant. And you go to step on down, leave that classroom, go on down to the next classroom, physical ed and health classrooms. And so no matter what the teacher is supposed to be dealing with, the teacher has to figure out a way to include information on Jackie Robinson, Wilma Rudolph, Muhammad Ali, Serena Williams, Jesse Owens, but also segregation in sports, Olympic diplomacy, protest in athletics, and how various Black people in America engaged in these things. And if there just so happens to be a Caribbean-born person that was in the mix, you include them. If they didn't have anything to do with the content, you don't include them. But if you do include them, you're not taking away from the African American experience. And you will see this in the social studies, in the civics class. You will see this in technology, technology and engineering classes. Across all disciplines, what Black History Month is supposed to be. And yeah, I'm focusing on the classroom because that's where it all starts. You go to classes, you go to school for at least 12, 13 years. So across all of these disciplines, you see the same structure, and this structure mirrors the publications by Carter G. Woodson. You center African American institutional participation, contributions, and achievements. You show structural interaction with the broader Black world. You avoid token global insertions that lack relevance. You don't just throw in somebody just because they happen to be Black. Because you must avoid isolationism. But it's not a zero-sum game. There's always proportion. Now, if someone says, "Oh, you just taking the FBA side, you trying to gatekeep." No. In a high school setting, every discipline centers African American contributions relevant to that field, while acknowledging diasporic influences only when historically connected and relevant to that field. That's not exclusion. That's coherence to the curriculum. So again, Black History Month is ours. And we share it with our brothers and sisters in any and every way that is meaningful, because it is a story, because it is a study and an assessment of how we have enacted, how we have engaged, how we have struggled and survived in this oppressive world. And to the people that said, like somebody else has said, in the UK, they don't study us. Why we gotta study them? In the UK, they study us. It's so simple. They literally do study us. And they study us the same way I'm saying we would study them. We would include them. They don't turn their entire Black History Month into an expose into Black American. They study the Black history and the Black culture of the UK. But wherever there are overlaps and interconnections, they bring them up. They do visit Black American accomplishments when it comes to civil rights. And they do visit a conversation about Malcolm X and Martin Luther King and or the Black Panthers, etc. But they center the UK just as we center Black Americans. No one is saying not to center. Well, again, just we keep doing that, just like my cousin. I'm not saying that there is zero humans on the planet trying to decenter. I'm saying whatever number it is, they are very small. They're not on the school boards. They ain't controlling nothing. They just goons talking online. And I would say, again, even if you were afraid that they might make a change, if you gather yourself, collect yourself, organize yourself, and march on down to the school board, you can ensure those changes don't happen. I promise you those changes ain't even being talked about. But why don't you go down to the school board and see for yourself? Because like everybody says, it should be talked about all year. When you gonna go to the school board? You can't just yell this stuff into the atmosphere and make it happen. You gotta work for that. So again, what I'm just gonna keep saying it over and over again. So the final reality check. If someone insisted it has to be all or nothing, that's not a historical argument. That's an emotional one. Like my cousin said, that's some hurt stuff. And you don't have to, I can't fix your trauma. I don't accept the zero-sum game. It's a false binary. And serious curricula have centers and context. If you're going to be serious about what we're going to learn, what we're going to teach, because this is about teaching the children just as much as it is about teaching ourselves and each other as adults. What you gonna do? Grab a book on Black history and every time you see somebody not born in America, skip the page? I'm not asking you to give up anything. I'm asking you to grow up intellectually. Now, I think I had one more quote. Let me see, where was my last quote? So let me see. Now let me see if I can get this onto the screen. My screens be acting up. Let me see. Stop sharing. Add the screen again. Now, where did it go? It's not that one. Let's see if it's that one. I don't think it's that one either. No, that's not it. Forgotten legacy. I'm gonna get this. I'm gonna fix this. So I'm trying to pull up a text called Forgotten Legacy. We get this Forgotten Legacy text. Here we go. So this Forgotten Legacy. Now this is not literally by Carter G. Woodson. This is another writer who is assessing Carter G. Woodson. And in his assessment, he says, thus for Woodson, the retelling of African history was not simply to challenge the historical canon or just to document ancient histories. So keep that in mind, not just to. He did want to do that. He wanted to challenge the historical canon. He wanted to document ancient histories, but that's not all he wanted to do. He also wanted to show that people of African descent, y'all do know me, that's us. People of African descent were not just enslaved, were not just colonized or primitive people, but a people of profound literary, scientific, and intellectual accomplishments. Thus, Woodson's efforts at retelling African history were at the forefront of his overarching philosophical and political project of challenging and reconstructing academic and school knowledge about Africans in America. Now, again, I can't make it no more simple, no more simpler. Now, again, this is an assessment of him. And so, here we go. Again, original intent is what got me into the game, so to speak. Carter G. Woodson's original intent. Let me stop sharing. Remove that. Okay, so Carter G. Woodson's original intent was to center the African American and to ensure that the African American is not isolated. Let me see. Shout out to, let's see, Miss Kaleem Shabazz. What's going on? How you doing, bro? Kaleem Shabazz says, we need to organize so we can use this knowledge power to elevate that collective. Yes, we do. We have to get on the same, we have to organize and we have to get on the same page. So let me see. That might be, I think that's all. So we have discussed the African, oh no, we haven't. The African background outlined. That's another text. The Handbook for the Study of the Negro. But once again, even in that text, in a text about the study of the Negro, and what I'm gonna do, just for further proof and evidence, let me share this screen one last time. So let me see, we got, now this one might be almost impossible to see on the screen. So let me see. see if I can move it up some. All I really wanted to show you is in this text. It is a textbook. This man wrote textbooks to coincide with his original intent, to enunciate to the world what his intent was. And his intent was to show us our connections to the world. So this textbook starts off the informants on Africa, Ethiopia and Egypt, Kumbi in Ghana, smaller kingdoms from the ruins of Kumbi, the Manding, the Songhai. So again, nothing this man wrote suggests that we should close the borders and only look at Black America. That's not what he was about at all. So I'm gonna stop the sharing, make sure we back on the main screen. Okay, so we good there. Now, again, I think I'm pretty much finished. Now I may visit this again. If anybody has any questions, you can drop them in the chat. Kaleem Shabazz says, join groups like our ancestors had done to make a contribution to the movement. Yes, indeed, please. It's funny to me, all of the people that got all of the smoke, and then they don't join anything. Organization is key. Organization means unity and division of labor. So shout out to Kaleem Shabazz for joining in. Like, share, and subscribe this. We need to get this information out there so we can have more fights with the gatekeeper crowd, the acronym squad, if we don't want to call them too much of. I don't mind calling their names, but I don't suffer no fools. So y'all know what I'm talking about. FBA, ADOS, Pretendians, the ABBA crowd, anything but African. So again, if you're going to have a conversation about Black History Month, if you're going to have a conversation about Carter G. Woodson, Negro History Learning Week, and so on and so forth, at least rooted in facts. Nobody is saying that the African American needs to take a back seat. We ain't. That's not even how we built. We ain't never taken a back seat. But you shouldn't automatically think adding somebody from Jamaica who was demonstrably connected and associated and worked with us for the betterment of us and all Black people around the world means that we taking a back seat. It just don't work like that. So again, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, I'm gonna land my plane, so to speak, is how they say. We finished for tonight. I will be back tomorrow, 6 p.m. So please make sure you like, share, subscribe, hit the notification bell, and select all so you can get the notifications when I come online. And again, as I said, now, if somebody wanted to jump on and make a comment or ask a question, you feel free to put it in the thing, or you feel free to hit. I do have the link is in the chat. And it's cool. If ain't nobody gonna come, then we're gonna get up out of here. So I'll give it a second or two just in case somebody is getting themselves together. I'll get a message saying someone has entered the room, and I'll let you in the same way I let my cousin, Dr. Dennis Assault Winkler. And if you haven't gone over there to hit the like button on his page, make sure you do that as well. So this your brother Shabazz. This is the proper perspective, where we look beyond smoke and mirrors and put puzzle pieces together to see the big picture. Hotep to the Pan-African Black world. And what I'm gonna say is we're gonna get ready to get on up out of here. So y'all check out this musical composition I put together as we float on up out.
Break it down with the proper perspective. So much controversy. Shabazz, break it down with the proper perspective. So much controversy and a lot of deception. You don't know who's coming through with the light and reflection. And whose mouth is mumbling, trick knowledge deceptive. Shabazz, break it down with the proper perspective.
Peace.